Good evening and welcome to the 5:30 meeting of the Douglas County Commission for September 30th, 2020. We want to welcome any of you who are at the Douglas County Courthouse or joining us online. We just need to pass a bit of information regarding how we run our meetings on Zoom in this time of social distancing. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share the screen with the call. Participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet. All participants will be entered into the meeting with their audio muted. The commission and the public will not be able to hear you. Presenters will be unmuted when their agenda item comes up. We ask that all online presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their line when not speaking and introduce themselves each time they speak. If you have a public comment on an agenda item or under regular public comment, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. Staff will call you and unmute you. We ask that speakers give their name and address for the minutes. The county does reserve the right to shut off the microphone and remove any speaker from the meeting if they're vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The chat function has been disabled and a recording of this meeting will be available on our website after each meeting. This evening, we have a proclamation that will start off our meeting. We have two items on our consent agenda. We have just two items on our regular agenda. Then we'll do appointments, general public comment, commissioner and administrator miscellaneous, and that will be our meeting for tonight. Commissioners, would any of you like to read the proclamation for this evening?
Commissioner Patrick, if you're okay, I actually have Emily lined up to do that. We were going to have Eric read a little something about what we do in 4-H youth development in Douglas County. Jill, do you have the slides to share for that piece? Awesome. Okay, fabulous. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Eric, if that's okay, and then Emily can read the proclamation here. Eric, if you want to, sorry to intervene. Okay, Eric, if you want to take off.
Good thing. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Eric Dahlman. I'm a member of the Clinton Eagles 4-H Club and on the 4-H Ambassador team. We want to take this opportunity to thank the county for your continued support of Douglas County 4-H youth development programs. The educational programs we provide allows Douglas County youth to build life skills by leading hands-on projects in areas like science, health, agriculture, and civic engagement. A recent study conducted from National 4-H Council showed that 4-Hers are 4 times more likely to give back to their communities, 2 times more likely to make healthier choices, and 2 times more likely to participate in STEM-related activities. 2020 was a year of innovation for our program. In partnership with our trained volunteers, we served 350 4-H members, ages 6 to 18, through our community club program. Our 4-H clubs have continued to meet over the past several months. 4-H volunteers and extension staff have collaborated to host meetings virtually and in outdoor spaces that allow for proper social distancing. 4-H clubs are continuing to offer service learning opportunities. Our 4-H members are giving back to our community by writing letters of support to our educators, sending cards to the elderly, volunteering at local food distribution sites, and much more. During the summer of 2020, we hosted a series of virtual STEM lessons called 4-H Innovation Labs, reaching 146 elementary, middle school, and high school students. Participants learned about coding, environmental science, robotics, and engineering. Our extension staff and local fair board also worked hard to host an in-person fair experience for our 4-H families. Although the fair looked a little different in 2020, the 4-Hers appreciated the opportunity to exhibit their 4-H project work. Throughout the past 4-H year, we have partnered with over 15 youth serving organizations, agencies, and school districts to expand our outreach efforts, reaching an additional 2,498 students. Our 4-H program empowers young people to be true leaders. 4-H teaches youth to have confidence, work well with others, and endure through challenges. Whether it is through our 4-H club program or our community outreach programs, we know we are growing tomorrow's leaders. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Emily Taylor of the Vinland Valley 4-H Club, who will read the proclamation. Thank you.
Whereas 4-H youth across the nation are keeping it green by leading efforts to solve problems in their communities, raise awareness about environmental issues, make a difference for their future. And whereas 4-H is one of the largest youth development organizations in Kansas and the largest in the nation with over 6 million young people. And whereas 4-H in Douglas County, Kansas claims more than 350 members and more than 100 volunteers. And whereas 4-H as part of the Kansas State University Research and Extension is a program where youth learn through opportunities that provide them hands-on experiences in 4-H's mission mandates of science, engineering and technology, healthy living, and citizenship. And whereas 4-H has connected youth and their communities with the innovative research and resources from our nation's 106 land-grant universities and colleges for more than 100 years. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas, do hereby proclaim October 4th through 10th, 2020 as National 4-H Week in Douglas County, and urges the people of this community to take advantage of the opportunity to become more aware of this special program that enhances our young people's interests and their futures as part of Douglas County 4-H youth development, and to join us in recognizing the unique partnership between our county and our state university system.
Fantastic job, Emily, and well done, Eric. Yes, a little round of applause would be totally appropriate there. Nicely done. I feel like we need to get us all in the Brady Bunch photo and take a picture now. So well done. Really proud of the work that 4-H does. And Caitlin, thank you for all your work with this group. Some tremendous young leaders there. Well done. We will move on to our consent agenda. There are 2 items on our consent agenda. Commissioners, do any of you have an item you'd like to have removed for our consent agenda for discussion?
I do not.
No.
Thank you. Sarah, is there anyone at the courthouse who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda?
We do not.
Thanks. And Jill is always monitoring our online participants and attendees. Jill, is there anyone there who might like to? Not seeing anyone. Okay. Commissioners, I'd entertain a motion for items 1 and 2 on our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 3-0. Move on to our regular agenda. The first item is to consider petition for attachment of lands to Rural Water District Number 4, Douglas County, Kansas, and receive statements of interest to persons, including any testimony from city, township, county, or regional planning commission having jurisdiction on the affected land. It's an administration item. Is this you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll introduce the item, commissioners. I believe we are moving a few folks into the panelists. At least John Nitcher, associated with Rural Water District 4. John, I don't know if you have anybody else that needs to speak on this item, but this is a request for attachment of lands to Rural Water District 4. The Board of County Commissioners are required to hold a public hearing. We have received feedback from the City of Lawrence as required in this, and I will just turn it over to Mr. Nitcher if he has any comments. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, now can you hear me? I always tell people I think I came along about 20 years too soon to be very good at this this stuff. So I apologize for struggling. I represent Rural Water District Number 4, and we are submitting a petition to the county to add 6 parcels of real estate along East 1550 Road into the district so that water can be provided to those parcels. We have done this pursuant to a request that we received from 5 of the property owners. Those 5 property owners make up 160 acres of the ground, and the 6th property that we're asking to include is property that belongs to Mr. and Mrs. LeClaire. They have 14 acres. They did not participate in the request, but they've indicated to me that they do not object to being included in the district, and in fact, hope that they are, so that at a later time, they can apply for and get rural water without having to go through an additional petition for attachment proceeding. What we have then is 91% of the landowners who are involved in this action participating and requesting that they be allowed to come into the county, or I'm sorry, into the water district. The petition was filed with the county, I believe on August 29th, and it is now properly in front of the county commission. Notices have gone out to all interested parties, including the owners of the land to be attached, the board of directors of the Rural Water District, the acting chief engineer for the Division of Water Resources for the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Notice has also been sent to the city of Lawrence, to the Wakarusa Township, and to the Lawrence Douglas County Planning Commission. The county clerk made sure that notice of this hearing was published in the Journal World. That happened on September 22nd. And according to the statutes that we're operating under, because this attachment concerns property that's within 3 miles of the city of Lawrence, this hearing is to be conducted, and the commission is to receive testimony from any interested person on the compatibility of this petition with city and other governmental plans for the area. I was provided with a copy of the letter that City Manager Craig Owens provided to Ms. Plinsky. As I understand the city manager, the city of Lawrence does not oppose the expansion of the service territory of District Number 4 into these 174 acres, but the city wants to ensure an orderly transition of water service in the future after the city expands into this area. I've not seen anything come back from the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Commission, but I did speak with Jeff Crick, who's the Planning and Development Services Director for the City of Lawrence Douglas County Planning and Development. And he advised me on September 24th that it probably will not be until after 2040 that the city expands into this area. So the district, of course, is interested in talking about transitioning from its serving water in areas to a city. We want to avoid the litigation that we were involved in a number of years ago with the city of Eudora, but it just seems premature by a number of years to be talking about transition at this point. We also spoke with the Wakarusa Township Representative Eugene George, who advised that he had no objection or concerns with the attachment. We spoke with the chief engineer for the Division of Water Resources for the Kansas Department of Agriculture. The Division of Water Resources has no objection. They only ask that if the county approves the attachment, that the Division of Water Resources be provided with that information so they can update their maps. They keep track of the expanses of water districts throughout the state, and they want to modify their records to stay current. So that's what we have. We've got 91% of the property owners who are asking that the petition be approved. It's our position that because that's more than 75% of the property owners, that unless there's an objection to this based on KSA 19270, talking about incompatibility between the district and, in this case, I think it'd be the city of Lawrence, If that's not the case, then we think that we're entitled as a matter of course for the petition to be granted. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Nitcher?
I don't have any.
I don't have any. This is a public hearing item. All of our items are public hearing. I don't know why I still say that. This is a regular agenda item, so we will take public comment on this. Is there anyone there at the courthouse, Sarah, that would like to provide comment?
We don't have anyone here.
Thank you. Anyone online, Jill?
I'm not seeing anyone, but if they do, please use the raise your hand function.
See, we have a couple of other people here. Any other folks need to provide comment on this item? Okay. All right, bringing it back to the commission for discussion, motions.
I don't have any discussion or questions, so if we're ready, I'll move to approve.
That'd be fine by me.
That's fine.
So that was my motion.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Move to approve. Or Patrick, I'm sorry, can you bring up, I guess if we need to read all of that, then
Yeah, that would be my question for Sarah. Do we need to read? This is a very long motion. For
it
the
is
public,
very long.
not staring at our agenda. I just didn't know if we can reduce it.
I would just read the first part that goes down to the legal description and just say the legal description as provided. So if that would probably be helpful to have in the minutes there for Mr. You know, and I could certainly try to put that on the screen if that would help the commission.
I almost have it unless somebody else is ready. Let me, I'm sorry, I somehow closed that before I meant to.
I've got it right here, Commissioner DeRusso, if you'd like me to read it.
If that would be great, if you don't mind.
I'm going to move to consider approval that notice has been properly given. Publication has been made as to the petition, finding the statements of petition to be true, that the majority of the board of directors of the district do not object to the petition. The petition is in conformity with KSA 82A-622 through 624 granted. That it is conducive to the health, convenience, and welfare for the petition to be granted, that the land is located within the fringe area of the city of Lawrence, and the board has adequately considered the criteria in KSA 19-270, that the land is in Douglas County. We approve the petition for addition to the Rural Water District number 4, and the legal description follows.
So is that your motion and you need a second or?
I think so, yes.
All right, second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Nitcher. Appreciate your
Chairman
work.
Kelly, commissioners, thanks very much.
We will move on to the next item, which is a planning department item to consider a comprehensive plan amendment, CPA 20-00196 to Plan 2040, Chapter 8B, specific land use plans would be the K-10 Farmers Turnpike Plan.
Good evening, commissioners. I apologize, just lost my internet connection, so I'm not visible any longer, but I think my screen sharing will still work. I'm Mary Miller, City County Planner.
Patrick and Mary, can I interrupt before we get started just with a kind of a technical question that'll help me think through this? I need to be reminded when there is a comprehensive plan amendment and it is goes to the Planning Commission first and the Planning Commission denies it, typically it wouldn't move forward to the city or the county, I think. And or if it does move forward, I mean, all three bodies have to agree, have to vote positively for a comp plan amendment to be enacted. Or do I remember that correctly or not? I'm just a little confused as to why this came forward to us if the planning commission denied it.
Mary Miller, City County Planner. I think I can discuss that. I have a process slide that I've included to show just how it goes through the process. But the state statute notes that the county commission and the city commission must both agree on the same amendment. The planning commission is a recommendation body. And so when they make their recommendation, it comes to you. You can override that with a 2/3 majority vote, or you can return it to them. And I think it may have been the practice of the city and the county commission to want everyone to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And there was a economic chapter to the comprehensive plan not too long ago that went between the three parties for quite a while. And so even though one denies it or recommends denial, it would move on to the next. And then at some point, you know, these could go on forever, but at some point, if it looks like it's not going to reach a consensus or agreement, then I assume we would just put it on hold or put the end to it.
So to be clear then, with the planning commission's denial, it doesn't take a unanimous vote tonight. It just takes a 2/3 majority for this to be
Yes, that's
approved, right?
right.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your indulgence.
Sure. And does my slide show up?
Yeah, it
Okay.
looks good, Mary. Thank you.
Thanks. As you mentioned, this is a comprehensive plan amendment to the K-10 and Farmers Turnpike Plan, which is incorporated into our comprehensive plan in Chapter 8B. The County Commission initiated this on May 6th, 2020, so that residential uses would be a permitted use in the northwest corner of the intersection of North 1800 Road and East 1200 Road. And this followed, just a brief history, it followed an administrative denial of a certificate of survey for this property. That was denied based on the fact that the residential uses were not in conformance with the recommended future land uses for this area. The plan recommends research office, and residential uses are not recommended in that category. The applicant appealed that denial to the Board of County Commissioners, and the commission deferred taking action on the appeal and then initiated the amendment to allow residential uses in this particular area. The amendment was voted on by the Planning Commission. They considered it, and on July 22nd, they voted 8-1 to recommend denial of the amendment, based primarily on concerns with amending a portion of this entire area plan when it would need to be amended possibly shortly in order to bring it into compliance with the updated comprehensive plan. So this is a process slide. I did pull up the state statute. I haven't done very many comprehensive plan amendments, so I want to refresh my mind with how these work and discuss this with our planning director. Governing bodies may either, now that the Planning Commission has acted, you can either approve the recommendation, which would be deny the amendment. You can override it with a 2/3 majority, or you can return the amendment to the Planning Commission with a statement as to your inability to approve or disapprove. And if returned, the Planning Commission can resubmit its original recommendation, or it can submit an amended recommendation. And the governing body can then amend, revise, or approve the recommendation with a majority vote. And I believe it's been the practice to try to get all three bodies on the same page before finalizing these amendments. It's not required by statute, but I believe that's been our practice. This shows the property that's involved. The area marked as A was the subject of the certificate of survey. And these parcels, the little parcel E was divided off after the certificate of survey came to the County Commission and sold. It was divided to the homestead exemption survey. And so these property owners were notified. They were notified when the amendment was initiated, and they were notified of tonight's meeting as well. They were notified by mail, and those that I had the email addresses for were notified by email. And the purple on this slide, it marks the research office future land use recommendation. Minimal changes are being proposed to the long range plan just to accommodate the specific request. And so the changes to the text are to the two sections noted here. Residential office, the written description of that would be revised to add the portion that's shown up in the outlined area on the graphic. And then 3.2.1.7 research office would be revised to remove this area from the written description of that boundary. These areas are also shown on the future land use recommendation map, and this shows the changes that are being proposed to the map. The subject property on the left is currently purple for research office, and on the right it shows the change, making that residential office. And with this change, it would be possible to move ahead with residential development. And as mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission's action was to vote 8-1 to recommend denial based on concerns that the overall plan may need to be amended and that the future land use of this area might be further revised. And then this is just the process slide again. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any, and I don't know if any of the property owners are attending today.
Thank you, Mary. Commissioners, any questions on this?
So I do have a couple of questions. I know that we're only considering the text amendment to the comp plan and not the actual proposal for a cluster development that would follow this change in the comp plan amendment. But I guess I want to frame this a little bit with what would be the future actions. So Mary, what tier is this parcel in, and what would be the process for that proposal? Was it submitted before the new county regulations or after? I mean, would there be a public process or not?
All right, thank you, Mary Miller, City County Planner. This certificate of survey was submitted prior to the zoning regulations be adopted. So there would not be a rezoning prior to the certificate of survey going forward. And so if the long range plan is amended, that certificate of survey, which was in the process and is now on hold, would just be completed. The review would have to pick up where it left off.
And then I know this is not a rezoning conversation, but just to kind of place this where it is in the comp plan in terms of tiers. What tier is this area?
I should double check. I believe it's tier 3. And, I will double check real quick on that and get you a definite answer in just one moment. Get my map up there. Oh, yes, thank you. That is in tier 3.
Thank you.
Mary, it's Commissioner Kelly. I had a quick question about the Planning Commission thinks that we may look at the entire plan. And if you could give us a bit of a timeline of when you think that might be. That was sort of, to my understanding, their concern that the whole plan needs to be reviewed and not just this one area. Am I misinterpreting something there?
Mary Miller, planner. No, that was one of their concerns. They didn't know if they wanted to make this change when we may be amending the whole plan and making the change to something different. And at the planning commission meeting, the planning director noted that it's on our work plan, but it's not on our immediate. He said it could be a year or more out before we actually get started on these long range plans. So it wouldn't be something we would change shortly, but it would happen probably within the next year or two.
And just a follow up to that, can you remind us of the timeline that this application, this is not the first time we've seen the application as you presented in your report. Can you remind us of the timeline that this applicant has been trying to develop this property?
Yeah, it was in 2019, I believe, that he came to the planning office and we recommended against going with residential because it didn't comply with the long range plan. And so he moved ahead with mini storage, which was found to be compatible with the research office uses. And that was a conditional use permit. There was a lot of concern with that, especially among the neighbors with drainage, the additional impervious surface and impact on drainage, and also with the character of the area. And that CUP was denied. And the commission indicated they thought residential would be a better use for this property. So he submitted the certificate of survey, and that was also denied. And he was aware that staff was going to deny that when he submitted it. And then he appealed that to you. And I don't have the exact timeline for that, but I can find that if you want.
But would it be fair to say that it's been over a year that this applicant has been working on developing this property, and per the planning commission's recommendation, it could be another year or more? Is that fair to say?
Mary Miller, planner. Yes, that's fair.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
No, I just want to comment that, the first time this came to us, one of the concerns we had was that, there was a belief out there that this all needed to be revisited because things had changed, and it's also a tier 3 in the tier 3. So we're looking at, at least 2040 before the city's even going to think about annexing or anything. And we had some concerns that, holding up a project based on something that may or may not happen 20 years down the road on a plan that is outdated and needed to be revisited. And so now here we are again, and it worries me that we're a year later still wanting to hold up a project because something may need to be changed, because it does need to be revisited and it's outdated and it's still in an area that's tier 3. So I don't see the point of putting this off, putting it off. It's it's been before us. I think this is the 3rd time. And it's a project that's ready to go. We've had this conversation, and just because this plan might be revisited because it needs to be, doesn't mean, we sent it based on this portion only. And that's what I think that we need to be looking at is this portion of the plan. And that's the discussion, not the fact that this entire plan needs to be revisited. We already know that, but we asked them to look at this. And so I'm ready to move forward on this, and it's a project that's ready to go, and it fits now, and I think in 20 years it's still going to fit.
Any other questions, commissioners? We should have some public comment on this item. And I'll open it up now if any member of the public would like to provide comment on this. Is there anyone at the courthouse on this item?
We don't have anyone.
Thank you. Anyone online who'd like to provide public comment? Go ahead, use the raise your hand feature.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, back to the commission. I don't take lightly a comprehensive plan that is for a specific property. That doesn't sound comprehensive to me. But I'm struggling with how long we if we recognize that the current zoning is not working for that space, I'm wondering how long we're going to hold up this applicant. When I hear people say that developing in Lawrence and Douglas County is difficult, this is what I think they're talking about, because I think this applicant has come to us now 3 times, has been told that it's not right in a number of different ways, has tried to change it up in a number of different ways. I don't like making a change to one, well, not one parcel, but a small piece of a large comprehensive plan. But I also don't see it being on the timeline anytime soon. And by the Planning Commission's own admission, the zoning is not correct for that space. So I'm inclined to approve this at this point, and I'm really interested to hear from other commissioners their thoughts.
Well, I agree that the kind of the point of pain in this is the length of time it's taking to get it figured out. And part of that pain is the length of time it's taking to get major work products done in the planning department, which I don't know if that goes to their level of staffing or to, you know, development pressure in the community, but we have a lot of sector plans, and all of them need to be, most of them need to be reviewed, and some of them need some pretty significant changes, because in the, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years that they've been adopted, we have changed pretty dramatically in terms of the kind of economic development we're going after, the kind of sense of whether we're a manufacturing community or whether we have a different sense of what kind of land needs to be reserved for large scale manufacturing. That was a very different story back when this sector plan was passed. We didn't have surveys of the entire county in terms of sensitive lands, historic assets, not so much attention to floodplain management and downstream, you know, kind of more natural and treatment of downstream flooding, you know, by being more careful upstream. I mean, there have been a lot of changes over time, and so I don't disagree that this is, I mean, this is really an awkward moment, because we have a landowner who bought a parcel thinking it was zoned one way and it wasn't, and then did jump through every hoop he was asked to jump through in order to go back to the original idea, which is housing. But the original idea was for a couple of houses, a couple of residents, and now the idea is for a fairly dense cluster development upstream of neighbors who complain of flooding. So I do agree that it's better that it's a down zoning rather than an up zoning. I think that's the way that area is going to go, but I think we just need to be mindful that it's a rural area. It's going to stay rural for a long time if it can. There's a new vineyard, there are, you know, new farmers, there's the Land Institute, there's the Lakeview Club, there's hundreds and hundreds of acres kind of under discussion loosely for future kind of open space consideration. And so I just think it's, you know, it's difficult, but you know, one amendment leads to another amendment leads to another amendment, and we might inadvertently cause this neighborhood to go in a particular way that it might not have. It might not have been zoned residential. It might have been zoned ag, you know, for just kind of a minimal residential. And we don't know that. So I get it. It's hard to keep someone from developing their land and keep them jumping through hoops. But you know, once the land is gone, it's gone. Once it's developed, it's developed. So I appreciate that this is a down zoning. But watching the video of the Planning Commission, it was a tortured conversation because we are asking them to do something, or we are considering doing something that they refuse to do because it's inconsistent with their belief that you don't change a comp plan for one proposal. And they really wrestled with that. So I think my sense in this is probably to stand with the Planning Commission in terms of asking, trying to give due consideration to a sector plan that is in great need of change. And I guess I would suggest that the Farmers Turnpike sector plan needs to be upped on the work plan in terms of the schedule as a fairly urgent need.
Mary, this is Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Thellman just reminded me of something that I don't think I remembered, that when the property owner bought the property, they had always intended to develop it residential. Is that correct?
Mary Miller. Yeah, when they first came into our office, they had asked if they could divide it and each one of them build on it. And that's when we told them that it would take a certificate of survey, but that would not be possible.
And did they get caught up in our change of the certificate of survey process?
No, they submitted before and there was no moratorium. When you place a moratorium, it was outside. So their project kept going. The UGA.
So before the applicant bought the property, I mean, they could have investigated that before buying the property. Am I correct?
They could. I don't know how many people know to come to the planning office and ask us what the future land use plans are. Usually they look at the zoning and then they think, well, someone will tell them you can do a certificate of survey in this zoning district. I would tell people you need to go to the planning office and ask what the long range plans are, but I don't think they knew to do that.
If I may interject, Tanya Voigt, zoning director. So I think I was the first contact with the property owner. At that time, he wasn't the property owner. I think he was just interested in purchasing the property. They did come to our office and do their due diligence. The property was zoned agriculture. And, from our zoning maps and from what we could tell, if he wanted more than one residential house, then he needed to go through a certificate of survey process because he was in the urban growth area. So at that time, our office sent him to the planning office. And once he got to the planning office was when he was notified of the future land use plan. And that really, he didn't have the option for he could have built one residential house on the lot. But once he started increasing that, then that triggered that he was a part of that kind of future city office space kind of planned area.
Thanks, Tanya. Sorry, I just keep having questions. And when we sent it back to the Planning Commission, was it for the entire, asking them to adjust it for the entire area or just this parcel?
Just this parcel. And I want to go back because if I remember correctly from the first time they came to see us, there was an option that they could have come to the commission, the county commission early on to have their more than one house, have that changed. But it was assumed, and they were told based on this assumption that the Board of County Commissioners would probably deny it and that they needed to look at other options. But I seem to remember a conversation that we were not given that option to approve or not. It was just assumed that we would not approve it. And so it moved on without us ever being involved in it.
Mary Miller, planner. I know that we gave them the options of amending the long range plan or developing in accordance with the long range plan. And so we did not deny them or discourage them either way. We did tell them that amending the long range plan is a process. It's not a quick thing. And you have to get through both bodies. And so we wanted to make sure they knew ahead of time. We're not telling you just go to a meeting and the long range plan will be amended. So we did tell them that it could be difficult, but we did not tell them they could not go forward. And we gave them the information. Those were their two options. They could develop with a non-residential use if we found one that was compliant with the long range plan, or they could seek to amend the long range plan.
Other thoughts, commissioners? So I really honor the comprehensive planning process. Watch the video. I think the commission understands it. I do struggle with how long it takes to do these. This is the second item we've gotten before us that the area plan and Plan 2040 are in conflict. And I'm concerned that we're going to continue to have requests just like this one if we don't get going on some of these plans and revise them. As I said earlier, I'm struggling with this idea of revising the comprehensive plan for one piece of property. That doesn't sound comprehensive to me. That sounds specific, but I don't know. I'm just really torn here on this one because I think the planning process is so important. But if it's stuck in neutral, I don't understand how applicants are supposed to work their way through this. That's why I was trying to fish out how much, I don't know how to say this nicely, how much we had misled or put the applicant through numerous hoops they had to jump through and led them down, well, maybe you can try this and maybe you can try this. If we sent it back to the planning commission with the idea that they needed to look at a comprehensive plan adjustment for just this property, and then it comes back here and we turn them down again, can we not, are we struggling with consistency in our own practice? Somebody changed my mind about that.
No, I'm in total agreement. We sent this back to the planning commission for this one part of the sector plan. And so now if it comes to us and we're going to say, well, no, because we're not comfortable doing just one part of it, then I mean, we just wasted what this started. Was this in May that we sent it back? So, I mean, we should have never sent it back if that was our intention, was that we didn't want to change this one part of the sector plan. So I guess the question would be, what are we doing here if our original intent was not to do just part of it?
The only thing I would add, not to further complicate, I'm not going to add clarity just yet to this situation.
Why would you hold out on clarity, Sarah? Don't hold out on clarity.
Right. Tanya and Mary and I have been in conversation to bring back to have a work session at the end of October to talk about cluster development in Tier 3, based off of conversations we had around Kinwaka Acres. And so, we have expressed concerns with cluster development in Tier 3. So I know that staff has a lot of questions for the commission in terms of trying to get some clarity about, do we even want that to happen? And what does clustering really look like when you're 20 to 30 years out from being inside the city? So while that doesn't help, but I just want to let you know it's also on the radar.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just think that if we say, we want an amendment for this one portion of the sector plan, And then, you know, it's back in front of us, even though the planning commission has denied it. I think we just reinforce the thought that Douglas County and Lawrence are difficult to deal with. I mean, we really, if we didn't want to do just one portion of it, we never should have even initiated the process. We should not be here tonight discussing it.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to, I guess, what was it, approve or deny what the planning commission did. Let me pull that back up, sorry. Or Mary, do you have that screen again of what our options were?
While she's pulling,
Mary had it very well spelled out for us. I moved to override the planning commission's recommendation.
I will second that. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Passes 2-1. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
We'll move on to appointments now. I know we have an appointment pending for a planning commissioner. And we have I think a person of interest. I just wanted to check with the commission on where we were on that. I did have a chance to visit with him.
I'm ready if everybody else is ready.
I didn't hear you, Commissioner Thurman. If you said something, Commissioner Thurman, I don't
Very,
think.
very qualified. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, just say that again. We just
You
lost.
froze for a moment
Oh,
there.
okay. Okay. I also visited with him. He's super well qualified. I think he, it would be worth talking with him some more about kind of the county perspective, the county values that we have tried to instill in our, in our work. But I think he's eager to learn and would be a real good addition.
Yeah, I spoke with Greg as well. One of the things I really look for in planning commissioners is how they're going to interact with the public. For many people who come to the planning commission, it's oftentimes their first time dealing with government and decision-making bodies and things like that, and it can get really technical and really overwhelming. I appreciated Greg's ability to sort of break some of those ideas down for people, and I think he would really show a lot of care. And his knowledge is extensive, but just as important is his personal qualities and being able to help neighbors, listen to neighbors when possible, come to agreements, understand things like sector plans. Plus, he promised to move the K-10 plan up in the timeline as fast as possible. No, he did not. So I don't want to mischaracterize that, but I think he understands too some of those issues that we're struggling with that Sarah referenced as well, on sort of the fringes of the city boundaries and what's happening there. So he has a really interesting background, and I think he'd be a great addition to the planning commission.
So if we're ready for a motion, I would move that we appoint Greg Schenken to replace, to fill out Jim Weaver's term on the planning commission.
Happy to second that.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0.
And then we do have, there's members of some of the other boards and some of these organizations that are working on following up on some of the folks that are eligible for reappointment to make sure that they are interested in being reappointed. And there's one of the boards that they're two people that are interested in, and I know that Tina and Tanya are working on vetting those and getting a recommendation to us. So hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some of those taken care of.
Can you all remind me when the Fair Board, it's probably written in one of the memos, but when the Fair Board appointments are made?
Those don't expire until February of 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other appointments, we'll move on to general public comment. General public comment is at the end of each meeting with a limit of 1 comment per person. The commission reserves the right to place a time limit of 3 minutes per speaker if desired. Individuals may not give unused time to other speakers. As a general practice, the commission will not discuss, debate, nor will the commission make any decisions on items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer items to staff for follow-up if necessary. All comments should be directed to the county commission. Sarah, is there anyone there who would like to provide public comment to the commission?
We don't have anyone tonight.
Thank you. Anyone online? Go ahead and raise your hand if you do. Okay. We'll move on then to Commissioner or Administrator Miscellaneous. And we usually start with Sarah Plinsky.
Thanks, commissioners. You've got a pretty hefty packet in the weekly memo in the packet. I want to call attention to a few things. First of which, there are some additional umbrella organization CRF grant applications in the packet from Bert Nash, Child Care Aware, Douglas County Community Foundation, Downtown Lawrence, and Lawrence Live. So if you want to have some time to take a look at those, if you have questions that you want me to pass along as we put those together, I'd really appreciate it. I think we can, if you want to look at them over the next week, I think we can do that. The staff has reviewed them, and I think we're kind of just working our way. I think there's still some room to make modifications to those if that's what the commission desires. In addition to that, in the memo, I have included, I'm scrolling back up. I've included I have a number of work sessions scheduled for October. And actually, we're missing one from this. Our plan is to have a work session next week as a behavioral health campus update. So we're getting really close to being able to approve the total project costs for the Crisis and Recovery Center as a part of the behavioral health campus. So we want to next week give you an overview of the campus, of the buildings on site, plus it's probably going to mostly focus on capital, but a little bit of some conversations about operations. So we will start at 4 o'clock next week. And then in addition to that, we've got the cluster development conversation that we talked about, that I mentioned earlier, and then an update on Consolidated Fire District number 1 for at the end of the month. And just as our calendar kind of gets a little full here towards the end of the year, November's hard. Like I think I mentioned last week, we missed 2 meetings in November because of Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. So we might be adding some topics that might be traditionally a work session to an agenda item, and I'll just try to keep the commission up to speed as we go through that. And I know that we are working on some other additional appointments, as Commissioner DeRusso suggested, to the Community Corrections Board and so forth. So you'll have some updates on that as we continue to go. Do the commissioners have questions for me? Yeah.
Sarah, I was wondering if there's still the intention to have a study session related to racial equity and kind of the exact work that we did. We put off a proposal, knowing that we needed to think more broadly county rather than city, but we talked about bringing in the kind of the equity advisors who put that proposal forward. But I know there's been some conversation. I think there's been some conversation between staff and those folks that I guess don't want to have that left undone if that's an expectation still, if it needs to be done. Or if things are going to progress next year in a way that will satisfy that, the intention behind that proposal.
Thanks for bringing that up. You know, what I would say is that we've had, you know, through the CARES Act, we had some conversations about, you know, when that project was not included for CARES Act funding, our general support for it. And then I have sort of raised it to other members, other community partners as to their interest in like proceeding with that at this time. And I don't want to say I haven't gotten a lot of support. It could just be that everybody's super busy, and the notion of is to try to clear the decks to find time to talk about, is this the proper proposal to move forward on, is just something that they haven't given me that feedback yet. So I really took it as we were trying to get some additional community partners. The city, you know, that was really a proposal to involve the city, the hospital, public health, you know, a lot of the partners involved in Unified Command into that initiative. And it has not, I don't have clarity from those partners if they're ready to proceed. So I was reluctant to bring it back before the commission with just us, if that makes sense. But I can certainly try to follow up on that and see, first of all, where do the equity advisors on the recovery team feel like we should be, and then also with that group, with the, in essence, the community, in essence, Unified Command, and are we ready to proceed? What I will say is that, you know, we are looking to modify our structure with Unified Command yet again. And now that we're kind of talking about, it's less of a focus purely on education and just how do we as a community continue to navigate our ways through this pandemic. So I can see if, does that, I mean, I'm not trying to dodge your question.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to be clear.
No, I think it's, I think when I think about it, when we talked about devoting a study session to it, it wasn't necessarily to get the full, huge, comprehensive, you know, plan put together for racial equity work from now and all into the future, but was a way to gather folks like Jasmine and Erica and Leah and people who admittedly kind of at the last minute put that plan together, but with really good intentions. And what I don't want to do is just leave them thinking that we punted and don't prioritize that work, or at least don't have the energy, or you know, as time goes on, things seem less urgent, and I think we need to keep the urgency behind that, the intention of their suggestion. And again, that may be for the next commission to figure out, but I just wanted to be mindful that we did say we would bring that up and bring those folks in and talk with them, I think, face to face. And whether that's still needed or not, I don't know.
Thanks for bringing that up, Commissioner Thelman, because as we know, tomorrow is October, and November and December with holidays are going to be short months. So yeah, if it is something, because we did say we were going to have a work session about it, but if it's something that's going to be moved to next year, that's fine. I just want to make sure that there is an understanding that there is going to be follow-up as we said there would be, and that we didn't just forget about it or chose not to do it.
I can offer some information too. If you recall from last month, when you all approved the contract with GARE, the Government Alliance for Race and Equity, for the capacity building partnership, and in partnership with the kind of spearheaded by the District Attorney's Office with CJCC. Part of that project was included in that was the role of local government and racial equity. And I don't have the exact title, but baseline foundational training for not just the CJCC, not just the DA's office, but up to 65 stakeholders. And so right now, what our racial equity internal team is doing is working with the DA's office, with Hannah Whitman and the DA's office. She's replaced LaTiffany, to help put together the different slots that Mike has kind of framed out a document of who those slots should go to. And there's community membership. And what I'd actually did earlier this week is I sent a follow-up email to Leah that was responding to her last email on this very subject, saying, Leah, or Hannah Whitman, who's taken the lead on putting together the invitations and all that stuff to all the stakeholders, connecting Leah and Hannah, indicating that Leah will be a great resource to connect those community stakeholders and the equity groups that have already been meeting. And Hannah and Leah have been connected, and they're going to be working to identify that. And I would think that we can update you all. I'll talk to Mike. We can update you all very soon on that. And then I'd also just mention that our internal employee racial equity survey is out right now. So that'll be interesting to see what we get back from that.
Well, Jill, thank you so much for that. And those were emails that you and Leah had, and it seemed like there was a lot of agreement that things were going in the right direction. A lot of people would be included in that work, and if that's enough, I mean, if that team is satisfied that the county's going in the right direction, and their hopes of a larger community effort will be addressed by just talking, I mean, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we didn't. I think it's important to publicly note that work is the process for that is being figured out officially, and community members and partners are included in that conversation. But I just want to make sure that we didn't disappoint that team or leave them feeling like they weren't, that their work wasn't honored. But it sounds like things are all in a good place. And thank you so much for all your work to communicate that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that, I think it's probably fair to say we wouldn't say that this is sufficient. This is the beginning of the conversation. And we really felt like, particularly for Douglas County, we need to do this step first. What the proposal from the equity advisors inside the recovery team was really something that I hope we will grow into once all of the community partners are sort of have some baseline training, understanding, and then talking about how it would be moving forward. So I do envision that something similar to what they proposed is something we would look to entertain and do more fully in the future. But at this point, we need some baseline equity training, and I believe the GARE, what we're going to be doing with GARE will help get us there. Does that make more sense in terms of what comes first? So, and obviously Jill's engaged in that work as the leader of our internal equity efforts and with our team, and we'll continue to navigate and ask those questions and make sure that we're staying up to speed on what's happening in terms of the community with that. Do the commissioners have anything else? Any other questions for me at this time? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. With that, unless there's anything else, we are adjourned.
Take care.